Hey guys, Dan here from Dan Sanger Photo, and welcome to another episode of Schmotography. On today's episode, we're going to talk about different types of photography and which ones I think you should start out with. There's quite a lot of different types of photography, but first we're going to start out with talking about portrait photography, then we're going to talk about sports photography, we're going to talk about nature photography, which I lump kind of like still life, animals, flowers, and landscapes all together in nature, just because I think landscapes is kind of boring, so I like to add a few things to that. We'll just call it nature. If you're like me, there's a reason you picked up a camera. For me, I picked up the camera for the first time when we found out we were pregnant with my oldest. She's 10 years old now, which means I've had a camera in my hand for a little over a decade. Just kind of practicing, I worked my way up from a point and shoot camera to a bridge camera. And then when I wanted to get serious about it, I got an entry-level DSLR. Then I leveled up to a more professional kind of crop body DSLR. And then now I have a mirrorless camera, Sony a6000. You can see what the image looks like coming out of a 6-year-old mirrorless camera. Mirrorless technology is just great technology. Sony makes amazing sensors and it really helps out in a lot of situations. All right, so what I want to talk about is the first type of photography I learned was portrait photography. Not in the traditional sense with, lights and soft boxes and all that kind of stuff, but just in general, taking pictures of people. You want to try and figure out what different angles are flattering for people. For instance, you don't want to take a picture of someone like this. Take a picture of them as if they would take a selfie of themselves. So they might lean forward, tilt their head down a little bit, so you have like a little bit of a shadow here, produce a little more of a jawline. Also, when it comes to portrait photography, you want to not edit so much. With landscapes and nature photography, you like to pump up the colors and the saturation and the detail because you want it to look as have as much of a wow factor as possible. With portrait photography, you really want to be very minimal on your editing. So you're gonna adjust your lighting. So you might brighten up their face, add a little bit of detail, sharpening to their eyes, around the eyes and maybe their mouth. But you don't want to add a bunch of detail unless you're Morgan Freeman, where you have like all these crazy dots. Most people don't want to show all their small imperfections and wrinkles and that kind of thing. So you don't want to accentuate them by adding too much sharpening and detail in post-processing. Edit too much as far as softening. I always laugh about people using the beauty face filter on their phones, and I've seen some people beauty face their nose off, where their face is just a blur. You can't even see their nose anymore because the image has been softened so much, and it's kind of ridiculous. You don't want to do that in your post-processing either when you're doing portrait photography. Portrait photography is a great type of photography to start out with because most people pick up a camera for the first time to capture their friends, their family, their newborn child, that kind of thing. And you want to get as familiar with your camera as possible, which means you want to shoot as much as possible. And whatever you have in front of you is the best thing to start with. So for me, it was portrait photography. You might have picked up a camera for the first time after having kids. The photography that I do now, I would consider sports photography. What I mean by sports photography is high shutter speed, fast moving action. So my kids are not pro football players, they're not pro basketball players, soccer players, but when they're on the field or they're playing in the backyard, they're moving very quickly. And if I didn't master the settings for, fast moving subjects, I would get a bunch of blurry pictures of my kids playing. So a great way to learn sports photography is just to try your best to capture your kids playing and running around, because once you can keep up with your kids, sports action is easy. The next type of photography I want to talk about is nature photography. A lot of people would call it that just has like up some landscape images up on the screen. Basically, there's just a picture of the landscape, kind of like a wide shot where you can see everything. You can see some water, clouds, sky, that kind of stuff. When I'm out getting landscape pictures, I like to get close-up pictures of flowers. I love taking pictures of flowers, plants, greenery. I don't have any macro lenses, but I like to get as close as I can to the flowers, to bugs, butterflies, stuff like that, and kind of show the detail. And when you're in close, you get a shallower depth of field with an interchangeable lens camera. So you get more of like a dreamy look. Here's a picture I took just in my front yard of a ginger plant during sunset. So it's kind of like golden hour. And you can see that the soft focus from my 1.8 lens really made the image pretty dramatic. It separated the main focus, the ginger flower, from the background of the image, and it also even some of the foreground out of focus. So it really draws your attention to where the sun is and where the flower is. Nature photography could also include pictures of dogs, cats, horses, birds. Sometimes I'll get some pretty birds in my backyard, cranes or robins. I don't think we have blue jays here in Hawaii, but I would take a picture of those if I could. But I like to, kind of take a picture of a bunch of different things. Sometimes I'll just go for a walk with my kids and we'll just take some pictures of what we see. It's been a while since I made a video. It's coming up on a year since the last video I posted on this YouTube channel. So just wanted to let you know that I'm back in action. This will be my first video of 2021, and I will definitely be posting. Stay tuned for more, and thanks for tuning in.